Greetings and welcome to Flanigan's Ecologic. I am your host, Ted Flanigan. And this week I'm pleased to have Gareth Evans on the podcast. He is the founder and CEO of Veckta consulting firm. But most pertinent today is that he has just written and published a book called Powering Profits. It's a practical guide for business leaders who know energy is a problem and need a clear path forward. It's a playbook on how to increase efficiency, boost profits, help build business brands for long-term benefit. Gareth, so nice to meet you. Thanks for joining me.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
And where are you today? Are you in? I think the business is in San Diego, but I saw Bend, Oregon, in your contact information.
We moved up to Bend, Oregon last summer. We wanted to get my son, who's 12, close to the outdoors, and he's a big skier, and we're definitely embracing the opportunity. Got 40 ski days over the winter, and we're out mountain biking regularly. So yeah, really enjoying it.
How great! I have a stepbrother in Bend, and then I just lectured for an Oregon State University class.
Oh, cool.
Nice. I guess OSU has a campus in Bend, right?
Yeah, and I think a very prominent expertise around environmental science and meteorology and software.
Good friend is teaching a class to an engineering class, and asked me if I would talk about disruption in the electric utility industry. So I
love it. That's
put together a great PowerPoint and had a good time with the students. They asked a lot of good questions. Well, congratulations on your new book, published just this last week, May 19th. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I haven't even got a hard copy of it yet. I've got plenty ordered, and I'm seeing colleagues and friends sharing photos of them having received theirs before I have mine. But it feels very surreal.
Well, congratulations. I think I heard that it took you a couple of years to write it. You got my buddy Jigger Shaw endorsing you there. And then I thank you for sending me the advanced copy. I cruised through it yesterday, and I saw Octopus Energy in there, and my friend Ray Anderson of Interface, and you've done a great job of compiling information there. And what is the theme? I saw controlling energy costs, building resilience, gaining a lasting competitive advantage. Is that the characterization of the book?
Yeah, definitely the crux of it, Ted, is as you're seeing in your line of work regularly, this is all about how do we not be passively consuming energy with no control of our own destiny from an aging grid. It's how do you actually understand what is the status quo, what are the risks associated with exposing your business to that passive consumption, but what are your options? And I think that energy acumen has always been lacking, isn't it? Because energy showed up when we wanted it. It was affordable. Sustainability wasn't in the discussion for many years. And now all of those things have changed, and business leaders know they want to do something, but they often don't know what's possible, what's been achieved, what are the lessons learned. So I wanted to kind of document, here is the playbook, here's the risk of not doing anything, here are the opportunities of capitalizing on this moment in time.
It's great. There are so many options, and I know you and we're in the same lane, the energy lane, and we get it. I mean, and we sort of assume that everybody else does. But we work with a lot of school districts, and they're in the business of educating kids. They know a lot about educating kids, but they don't realize what their options are, and they're certainly not keeping up with the latest energy storage devices and net energy metering tariffs and all the other kind of stuff that we take for granted. Well, great. And the book is available on Amazon. It's called Powering Profits, right? I looked. It's cheap, Gareth. $9.99 for the Kindle version, and $17.61 for a paperback. So and literally, a book like this could save a business millions, if not tens of millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping the return on investment is fantastic.
I'm sure will be for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For a lot of people, a great playbook. Well, let's just back up a little bit and talk a little bit about you, and then we'll really dig into the book. Your career, as we were mentioning just before we started recording, you grew up in England. In you said Liverpool. You went to college in Lancaster.
That's right.
And what was it that brought you to America?
Yeah, it's been a really wild career journey. After university, I traveled the world with a few friends, trained with the Shaolin monks in Northeast China, traveled through China, Vietnam, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand. And then I essentially ran out of money in Canada and had an environmental science degree. Didn't have a clue what it'd be useful for at the time. But the oil and gas industry there was booming. And they were starting to think about how do they remediate and reclaim some of the old well sites. And so that's what I got into, is cleaning up old contaminated oil and gas facilities. And that actually ended up taking me off to Iraq at the end of the Second Gulf War, supporting the oil and gas industry to move into the region. And we can talk about that in more detail if you want, because that was the catalyst for then my career in energy. But I moved to the US to lead a power consulting practice for Worley, which was the largest energy engineering firm at the time in the world. They had acquired Jacobs, or half of Jacobs, and got a really nice front row seat of the transition from coal to gas to renewables, and then onto distributed energy. And
I thought you were going to say you fell in love with an American gal.
A Canadian gal, actually. And but business brought us both here after a great round the world tour, including Australia as well. So Middle East, Australia, and then to the US together.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Iraq. It was after the Iraqi war, Gulf War. What year would that have been?
Yeah, so I was there in 2009 for
2009. And so you were really literally trying to rebuild the oil and gas industry there. That was the challenge at hand.
Yeah, the interesting thing was, it was ExxonMobil, BP, Eni, Petronas. They were all taking stakes in the oil fields in southern Iraq. And a key part of them mobilizing into the region was actually understanding the liabilities that they were adopting. So we were actually there as a team doing liability assessments, environmental, social. We're having to sweep for unexploded ordnance. And we're essentially giving them a baseline of what they were moving into, for them to then sort of take control of these assets and then start trying to ramp up production again post the years of conflict. So it was super interesting. We were on the US Army base in Basra. We were being mortar attacked most evenings. We couldn't go anywhere without, for every 4 individuals, we had to have 3 armored Land Cruisers and 6 bodyguards, typically ex-special forces. So we're surrounded by a lot of firepower all the time. We're constantly on our kind of heightened senses, looking out for people on phones, tires on the side of the road. You never knew what you were getting yourself into.
Now, you're calling this super interesting. I'm calling it super scary.
Yeah, it was, honestly. And
you must have been thinking, what the hell am I doing here at times?
It's funny though, isn't it? You use kind of a sense of humor to always play down these kind of risks. But I didn't realize it, but my wife did. I'd return to Dubai. I'd do like 3 weeks on, week off. And at one point, she's just like, you have to get out of here because your personality is completely changing. And I was becoming stressed and anxious. And so I actually suffered anxiety for a few years after that, and ended up having to get into hardcore Ironman training and endurance events just to actually let the body process the stresses of that period. Yeah.
I think you said in an interview that I listened to that this experience did shape your perspective on energy quite deeply. I mean, maybe let me just take a minute and say, maybe, those of us who are not in war zones just sort of take energy for granted, but there you were with all that danger and all of that destruction. Is that right? Is that what you meant by it shaping sort of your perspective?
2 perspectives really, Ted. The first was, here we are having fought a war over access to energy, and even energy sovereignty has always been so important. But until I was there, I actually didn't know what that meant. I didn't really understand where our energy actually came from, and then seeing it firsthand and seeing the actual realities on the ground of oil spills as far as the eye could see, big flare stacks pumping out endless amounts of gas, and just the devastation that was surrounding it was quite eye-opening. And then the thought that we're then extracting this precious resource to ship it halfway around the world, to burn it in a power plant, to send energy down a super long transmission line, kind of blew my mind. And then on the flip side, I saw actually what happens when you don't have access to energy, because the local population was surviving on 2 hours of power a day. So many of the people we were working with that was their reality. There's no economy, there's no businesses. You can't even cool your own house in 100+ degree days in the middle of summer of the desert in Iraq. And it just showed me that energy is genuinely the lifeblood of everything. And when we don't have it, things can go bad very quickly, and we do take it for granted.
Yeah, how interesting. What about Chile? You worked in Chile as well, right?
I did charity work in Chile, before going to university. So gap years in the UK are
okay.
not frowned on, and so I had 3 months traveling through Chile, or 3 months doing charity work, and then I traveled through Chile, Bolivia, Peru. Similar deals. I got to see different cultures, different lifestyles, different qualities of life, and all of this shaped kind of my adventurous spirit and desire to. Like, my mission now is clean, affordable, reliable power for all, because if we generate that, then the opportunities become endless.
I have blackout zones here in my note next to Chile.
Well, I think primarily probably because even last year, the whole of 97% of Chile was without power for days. And I think it just goes to highlight, doesn't it? Is in the book I talk about the extremes of Iraq are hard for people to comprehend.
Yeah.
But this has happened in Cuba, it's happened in Puerto Rico, it's happened in Chile, it's happened in France, Spain, and the UK last year. So these kind of power quality, power reliability issues are not to be taken for granted.
They really aren't. They really aren't. So when you were in Iraq, were you working was that when you worked for Worley Parsons? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So we were essentially contractors and consultants there for the oil and gas companies.
And they had a division called what, Advisian, is that right?
Yeah, Advisian is essentially their management consulting arm, technical and management consulting. I think the reason why it was created, candidly, Ted, was they saw that you had the McKinseys of the world offering strategic advice, but then they were coming to us as a company, Worley, for the technical expertise, because they didn't understand actually how strategy could be implemented. And so then they created Advisian to say, actually, we've got all the technical knowledge. Let's combine that with some business performance management and change management and make it into a holistic offering.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So you were, what, about 8 years with Advisian?
That's right.
And then decided to found your own company?
Yep. So 15 years total with Worley, of which 8 years was on the Advisian side. Yep. And my last role was leading the distributed power consulting practice. And so that's where we actually incubated the concept of what has become Veckta today for several years, because what we saw were more and more businesses wanting cost reductions, new revenue streams, power reliability, emission reduction, but they didn't know what to do about it.
How to do it, yeah.
And so for me, we were generating these great reports and great PowerPoints, but my frustration became nothing was then executed because, as you know, the supply side of the market is so fragmented, so local centric, and these companies didn't know how to turn that plan into action. And so I wanted to create the solution whereby here's what you need, here's where you should do it, here's what it's worth to you, and then here's how you go and execute against that in a really independent way where we represent the customer's best interests.
And where was Veckta founded? Veckta. I want to put an R. For some reason, I want to put an R in there. I should.
Yeah. Veckta comes from vector, which is to provide magnitude, direction, and scale. So for me, this is about providing that to this industry. But we founded it in San Diego, right at the end of 2019, and literally weeks later, COVID started. And so my dreams of having a team and a boardroom with whiteboards and innovating and ideating evaporated very quickly. But it also created a unique opportunity to hire incredible talent all around the world and build a different business to what I envisioned.
Is that the way it is now? It's really primarily a virtual company. You've got all sorts of
that's right.
Experts that are scattered here and far and wide.
Yeah, that's right. And because we're a technology platform, if I asked our software developers to come back to the office tomorrow, I'd have a rebellion. And so they want to execute great work and they want to do it in their comforts. And so, I think it's created a really nice opportunity.
And where are most of your clients?
Yeah, so we tip our customer base are US based companies, and then we have followed them around the world then. So we've done work in Europe, UK, Southeast Asia, Australia, Mexico, but we always support US headquartered businesses today. But the opportunity, as you know, is this is a global change in how we actually think about energy. And so we've built a product such that it can be translated into any country, any opportunity. It's now just about ensuring we've got the capacity to go and deliver that.
Yeah. So now how far will you go in terms of delivering? Do you know, obviously you're doing all the planning, the strategic planning, and I see that you have financial partners. Are you actually building projects? And no, you're advising.
Yeah.
Right?
So definitely the way to think about it is, when you want to go on a holiday, you go to, say, an Expedia, and it would say, where do you want to go? Do you want a 5-star, 3-star? Do you want a hotel, an airport, a flight? Do you want insurance with that? Do you want a rental car? And then it gives you your options, it packages it up, and then it helps you buy that. That's essentially what we've built for energy systems. So what do you want to achieve? Here's all the intelligence, the insights, and the business case for doing so. And that can be for a single site, or it can be thousands of sites around the world. Here's your strategy to achieving the greatest returns on investment. And then here's a marketplace of over 4,000 vetted suppliers who then will competitively compete for your work. And the value of our process, Ted, is that we've flipped the script. Today, developers sell to buyers, as you know, through your line of work. And the problem for the buyers is they don't know who to believe or what to trust.
Yeah, exactly.
So by giving them the insights and the intelligence, they know what to ask the market for. And then with our RFP process, it ensures that then the suppliers compete on merit on a level playing field. And we're typically seeing that we can save between 30 and 50% in capital costs for our buyers through that process.
Yeah.
Because it's all about compressing the soft costs out of the system, all the churn that gets created in our industry. And then what we've built out with a few of our customers is then the ability to monitor the asset post deployment. So is it performing as promised? If not, why not? And then how do you actually modularly expand these assets in the future to constantly be ahead of the market and maximizing them to their fullest?
All sorts of questions come to mind. Of course. Love it. Sounds great. You mentioned 4,000 suppliers. You mentioned a platform. Do you actually have a software platform that has all these suppliers that's already built into it that you vetted?
Yeah. This is the key. So this isn't a marketplace where you can go and shop. You can't go and scroll through and pick someone. The process is set up whereby once you've approved your business case and you really like it, you need this much solar and this much batteries, and it's going to save you $100,000 a year. You then work through our RFP generation process, so request for proposal, and that ensures the customer is thinking through all the risks, the opportunities. Do they want to finance it? Do they want someone else to finance it? Who's responsible for performance guarantees, warranties, interconnections, all the things that a buyer doesn't know what to ask of the market. And then the opportunity will only go to the suppliers that match the project in terms of location, size, technology type, financing needs, experience, contracting terms. So you're not going to have all 4,000 competing for your project, but it's going to target those that are aligned with your interests.
And then are you taking a share of savings, or are you? Yes.
Yeah. So it's transparent. The suppliers are all on a level success fee, and the buyers also know that that's the case. So what we've done is the intelligence obviously highly subsidized to ensure that the buyers get the information they need, but the cost barrier isn't significant enough to stop them from doing it. And then the suppliers pay us a success fee, but only when they win work. And we found that aligns everyone's interests. The buyer gets the system they want. The suppliers get a really high quality opportunity with a low cost of sale. And then when both of those parties win, we win. And that's completely transparent to both parties.
Yeah, very good. How different are what people want or your customers want? Do they all? It would seem like the bottom line is they want to save money. But give me some examples of somebody that came in with a little bit of a different spin on what success would look like.
So as an example, we had a cold storage company just north of where you are, Ted, who they actually had a developer bid in hand. So they were paying PG&E 25 cents a kilowatt hour. The developer had approached them saying, we can sell you energy at 15 cents. And they didn't know whether that was a good deal or not. It felt like a good deal because it was significantly below the utility.
Yeah.
So then we ran a competitive marketplace process for them. So in that case, they knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted a solar-only solution. And we were able to lock them in at 8.5 cents for the next 20 years by finding them the right suppliers. So that's an example of someone wanting a power purchase agreement. On the flip side, we had a biotech firm in San Diego who wanted to be able to ride through power outages because they have very sensitive equipment.
Yeah.
And any blip would impact. They were taking skin samples and they didn't want to obviously lose people's skin samples. So we ended up designing them a solar plus battery system with then EV chargers for their customers. So very different system, but then they wanted to self-finance that. And they, get significant cost savings every year, but then 24-hour backup generation as well in the event that the utility goes down. So they're two great examples. We work with Stellantis where they said we've got 18,000 car dealerships around the world. Where would it make sense for us to deploy these systems? Right. So a very different problem statement. Then it's just where does this make the most sense, and what is the appropriate roadmap to unlock value in a very structured way?
Right. Very interesting. Yeah, we had one client that came to us and said, our number one objective is recruiting top talent to work for us.
Oh, interesting.
And all these students coming out of these hot programs, college and university programs, are looking to work for a really green organization.
Yeah.
And that was that kind of threw me. Well, I mean, it's all pre-aligned, but anyway, you touched on energy resilience as being a really important sort of a real new development now, that especially with batteries, energy storage, we can get resilience without burning fuel in a generator, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the new exciting opportunity is, instead of this just being a cost saving measure, it can actually be a revenue generating opportunity. Right. Do you want to host a battery? Do you want to host solar panels? Do you want to host data center inference at your facility? Do you have access to power? Do you have access to real estate? How do you monetize that? And I think for the first time in many years, we're starting to see the real estate industry realize that formerly having these triple net leases where they weren't responsible for energy, the tenants were, it wasn't very interesting to them. But now being able to build their own systems, sell energy to the tenants or to other off-takers, there's lots of ways to really get creative with this. And that's what's exciting for me, is shifting from that passive consumption to active, and then the future being prosumers, where we can all transact in real time. And I think it's going to unlock a whole new paradigm.
Yeah, sell grid services.
Yeah.
Let's dive into. I think we have gotten into the book at this point, don't you? I mean, your business model has informed the book and has guided the book. How do you start? How does the book start out?
Well, definitely the book starts out with the Iraq story of here's the breakthrough moment, lying on a cold shipping container floor, thinking about
life and death
and energy. Exactly. But then we break it into three core areas, which are aligned with our core values. And the way I wanted to lay it out was the first being challenging limits. And this is all about not accepting the status quo. But I wanted to frame, here is the status quo situation. Here's the state of the grid. Here's the outdated commercial model. Here's the risk of doing nothing. And then here is a potential opportunity for the future. And then adapting purposefully is the second core value. And that's, how do you now transition from knowing the risks of doing nothing and the status quo to actually now adapting? And this is about baselining where you're at today, understanding corporately what are your objectives. Is it talent hiring? Is it cost? Is it resilience? Is it enterprise value creation? And then understanding where across your portfolio this makes sense, and then designing systems customized to your specific needs, objectives, local constraints, and market conditions. And then empowering co-creation is the third, because this is, no one can do this on their own. This is genuinely a team sport. It involves finance, operations, real estate, procurement, contracts, people. So how do you rally a team of people around you internally to make this not a unique one-off play date for everyone, that this needs to be a systematic process that's built into everyday business that can be rolled out at scale across a portfolio? And talking about how do you communicate the value to your CFO, and how do you rally legal and contracts around you, and how do you justify this investment, and then how do you ultimately monetize this over the 30-year asset of the asset life? So that's the kind of general framework.
I love some of your metaphors, and one that you didn't mention, but I read, was that your company is sort of like a golf caddy.
Yeah.
It's like the caddy is telling you which iron to pull out, and give you some guidance on the various slopes on the green.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the team sport, which I think is really so important. Uh, and it's probably those organizational dynamics that have stymied so many of the opportunities that you see so clearly, right? It's
Yeah.
not, they're no longer technical issues
No.
or financial issues. It's a lot of organizational, interpersonal things that can frustrate and scuttle deals, right?
Yeah. I was taught many years ago about the permafrost layer, the kind of frontline leaders
Mm,
where executive team has said, we want to achieve this.
yeah,
The bottom portion of the business is excited to do anything. And then you've got the operational frontline leaders who are so overwhelmed with their day-to-day role that
yeah.
the thought of taking on something new and breaking a process, trying something different, can feel very overwhelming. And it's that, you end up falling into that risk of, playing to not lose versus playing to win.
Right.
And I think that is the risk for many businesses, that if they don't play to win, they're going to get disrupted very quickly in this environment.
And you were, I heard you saying this in the interview that I listened to, that people have there's a much stronger sense of fear, or fear is much stronger than that possibility
Yeah.
of victory, right? And that's just human nature that we're. So how do
Yeah.
we, how do you get organizations to, how do you help organizations bust through that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because, people's fear of change is twice as powerful as the opportunity of gaining something.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think we all want to be very positive, don't we? And we want to show the way, and we want to show the opportunity. But at the same time, there needs to be a bit of that understanding and the fear to drive some action. And so it's really sort of laying out, here is the impact of doing nothing, and rates in California where you're sat have gone up 70% in 4 years.
yeah.
Can you accommodate another hit like that? And helping people understand, if you don't act, here are the consequences. But
Mm,
then, by the way, here are the exciting opportunities. And this is what you can use to build your social license internally, to help gain your position within the organization, to create value at an enterprise level, and helping
mm.
people understand that this is both a personal and a company opportunity.
Yeah, it really is. I was thinking about your challenge in writing this book, and I think you've done a great job from what I've read. And again, I just skimmed it. But, our industry is so full of acronyms and jargon, and we're so used to it. But I think you had to really move away from that. You must have had some good editors that are saying, Gareth, make
Yeah.
this, put this into plain English for the average person, right?
Yeah, we all get sucked into the technical details, don't we? And I think the key to this is we are all at nature, like we're not technical experts, and so we need to make it super simple. And that's where I use a lot. Like there is a driving theme throughout. So it's about
Yeah.
a road trip. It's about using a digital map instead of a paper map, being dynamic, being able to adapt in real time, having
Yeah.
the pit crew around you to go and win the Grand Prix. So try and feed in these kind of, hopefully, stories that people can kind of connect with, to understand where this is going without being overly complex and technical. And yeah, like you said, it took 2 years, primarily from a perspective of making it so simple and understandable. But also, this market has been changing so
It's
quickly in the
changing,
last
right?
few years.
Yeah, right.
The first version would have been massively out of date. So then the challenge was, how do you write something that's going to last the next 10 plus years, even if
Yeah.
the market's changing around it?
Right, right, and it will change. I love the description of somebody told me, and I want you to elaborate on this just a little bit, that in terms of our own time, right? We have a certain amount of time and energy on the planet, right? Or every day. And there were four primary ways to spend your time, and work and family and health and friends. Is that who came up with those four buckets in your?
Yeah, I've seen this come across more and more. I was told years ago it was, you're juggling four glass balls, and
Yeah, right.
you're probably going to drop one or two of them, depending on where you put your priorities. But I've seen it more and more in like Instagram posts and corporate presentations, and I think it's
Yeah.
becoming very obvious to people, isn't it? Is you can't juggle those four balls, so you've got to make a choice of where you're going to put your priorities. And for that chapter of my life, writing the book, it was, building Veckta. It was being a good family person. I'm focusing on the book. And unfortunately, my health and fitness and my friends, suffered. And I love being active. And that's really hard because I'm sat here probably 30 pounds heavier than I should be because I had to prioritize other things. And sometimes we have to make these trade-offs. So hopefully now the book's out, I can get fit again.
So you're saying, Gareth, that you can get a little out of balance for a couple of years, and as long as you keep that perspective and you kind of bring it back,
Exactly.
bring it back. Were you really an ultra marathoner?
Yeah, I did 100 miles a year ago. I set myself the challenge Christmas, I think 2024. I gave myself 6 months to train, and I took on the Born to Run Ultra in Los Olivos, just outside of Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I got to experience every emotion that I've experienced in 20 years of business in like a 24-hour period. And some of it wasn't pretty, but I loved every minute of it. And it's not something I'd rush to go and do again tomorrow, but there's something about endurance events that just helps you tap into who you are and experience these. In business, we need to be gritty, we need to be resilient, we need to be able to adapt to situations, and you have to do all of that in an endurance race. So
well, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, and it speaks to your character. And how fantastic. Well, it's been great chatting with you. I do encourage readers to pick up a copy of this book, Powering Profits, on Amazon. Please. And be in touch with Veckta if you need their help as well. So, Gareth, so nice. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Ted. You're awesome.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanigan's Eco Logic. We'll see you next time.